Hello friends, it's so good to be back after such a long time. I guess I'm filming a sit down video after almost an year, but this time I've come with a bang, and today we are going to see a video about fall or spooky season book recommendations. Like I said, we are going to see book recommendations that are perfect for this fall or spooky season, and I have divided this recommendation into 4 categories, and let's see one by one. The first category is atmospheric fall reads, the second one is straight out horror books, the third one is Gothic Classics, and the fourth one is my hopefuls, my TBR for this October. So let's start off with the first category, that is atmospheric fall read. I'm going to start the recommendation with my recent reads. I read 2 books that are very perfect for this season. The first one is The Year of Witching by Alexis Henderson, and the second one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by VE Scwab. This book is very atmospheric. It talks about witches. It has a separate forests that are full of coven of witches. And this story follows a girl called Emmanuel, and her mother is a suspected witch and she's dead now, and her father was burnt in the fire, and she has a lot of baggage while growing up because of these reasons, and she finds herself entangled with her parents' mystery as she is growing up, and she ends up angering the father of the church, who literally burn anyone who are remotely associated with witchcraft. This is kind of intense, but it's very eerie, atmospheric, and very fast paced. So I enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend this. The next book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That book is not so scary, or it does not involve any witches or magic or trickery of any kind, but this one has a special story which was very pleasing and very apt for this season. The girl in here, Addie LaRue, she makes a deal with the devil in order to escape from her marriage. In exchange of that, the devil grants her an immortality, but no one will ever remember her name. So the moment someone turns their face against her, they will just immediately forget her. So she's been living for 300 years now, and finally one guy remembers her name, and it changes the entire game of her life. What happens after that is all about in this book. It was very atmospheric, fast paced, and I loved every moment staying in this world, and it is very atmospheric and wholesome for this season. The next 2 books that I'm going to talk about in the atmospheric reads category are 2 of my favorite books of all time. I have already spoken about these 2 books in my channel quite a bit, and you might have already known it if you have been following me. The first book is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is such a cute story with witches, swamp witches, and magic in it. It's so whimsical. The story follows Luna. Luna is growing up in a town where there is a swamp witch, and each year the villagers of the town offer the swamp witch a child. That child is being carried across the forest and led to another family by the swamp witch. Meanwhile, she feeds them starlight. Each one of the child is fed starlight, but accidentally when she is taking Luna across, she is being fed moonlight, and that changes the game. Moonlight is supposed to contain a lot of magic, and she has drank a lot of moonlight now, and she cannot control the magic in her. So the swamp witch decides to bring her up on her own. So this story is a kind of coming of age story. Luna grows up and she finds about her past, and what happens after that is what the story is about. But this story is extremely atmospheric and very fun to read. It's very light-hearted. If you are looking for something that is not very spooky but gives you all the witchy vibes, this is your book. And the last book in the category is one of my all-time favorite book. If you are taking up any book from this entire recommendation, I feel this should be it, and that is The Tangle of Spells by Michelle Harrison. This is a part of a series. Actually, this is not a standalone. This is part of a Pinch of Magic series by Michelle Harrison. but I think you can read this alone. She gives you enough synopsis of what happens before the story starts, and I feel like the story is totally independent of all the other 2 books before this. So in this story we follow 3 sisters. They are all Withershin sisters, and Betty, Charlie and Flo. These sisters have a magical object that makes them vanish whenever they want to. In the story, these sisters along with their grandmother, they move into a weird small town, which is the perfect setup for spooky and witchy season. That is a small town with very pretentious characters in it. As soon as they move into this town, there are a lot of weird stuffs that are happening, and they find themselves in weird situations, very suspenseful, very eerie situations, and these sisters are hellbound to solve the mystery around the town. This is such a good read. You will never go wrong with this pick. It will literally make your heart feel full. It is really a good book. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I will highly recommend this book for you. The next category I would like to talk about is Gothic Classics. Gothic books have a tendency to make you feel very unsettled. That is the kind of vibe I'm looking for in the spooky season, and some of the classics make very good attempt of it. So I have 3 books here. One of the book is a Gothic literature, but it is exactly not a spooky Gothic literature, but that is a satire of Gothic literature. But nonetheless, this book will always be a good choice during the spooky season. That is Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I know you might be laughing at this recommendation because I am suggesting Jane Austen during a spooky season. This is a romance book, I know, but this is set in a very eerie premise. It is really very good. You will laugh the lungs out, and this is quite a short story. If you're reading Jane Austen for the first time, I think you should pick Northanger Abbey. This will be the best book to read in the October of all her work. The next book is kind of an obvious suggestion in the Gothic classic literature, that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I recently read this and I thoroughly enjoyed. The story follows Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein. He is the scientist who found the creature. This creature, the creature's name is Creature only, unnamed creature. This is kind of an horror story. At the same time, this is also a kind of moral battle between the good and the bad. That is what I loved in this book. It is also atmospheric, and it is also very fast paced. It is not like the regular classics that are very slow paced and needs your time. This is brilliantly written, and this is easily one of my favorite classics of all time now, and I highly recommend you to check it out this October. The last book in the Gothic literature classic is, I cannot skip this book because this is the father of all the Gothic classic literatures, that is the Dracula by Bram Stoker. And as the title suggests, it is about Dracula, the king who's been a vampire, and this entire format of the book is very interesting. It is all written in letters to each other. The entire book is kind of diary entries and letters to each other. I was very much intimidated before reading it, but once I read it, I thoroughly enjoyed. It is really very good, very scary, very atmospheric, and it's perfect for the fall season. The next category that we are going to speak about today is the most important category of this video, because these are the books that are outright scary, horror rich, spooky, ghostly stories. And I know that everyone tends to pull up one or the other ghost stories during this season, so I'm here to recommend some of the ghost stories that I have enjoyed personally. So first in that list is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A Craig. This I have spoken about a lot of times in my channel before, but this is a retelling of 12 Dancing Princess fairy tale with just a ghostly twist to it. The story follows Annalie, and her sisters are dying one by one, and she is hellbound to find the reason or the curse, whatever is affecting them. So this is the one that you have to look out for. You might want to read it in a broad daylight. Next book is The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. I guess this author writes a lot of this kind of ghostly stories, but I have read only this one, and this I devoured in a single day. It is really very fast paced, and think of this one as Gilmore Girls but in a haunted town and a haunted horror story, because this one has a kind of very good mother-daughter relationship in here, and they move to a small town, and it was all giving me Gilmore Girls vibes, but it's really very haunted. This town is really very haunted. This also has a lot of jump scares. It's really layered. It has a psycho kind of ending. It's really very good. You cannot resist reading the next page. So if you have a very huge reading slump, this book might help you get out of it. So check this out for a very small town ghostly horror story. The last book in the category is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I hope Riley Sager is a known author to you. She is very, very famous. She keeps on writing thrillers and horror books, and I find this one to be the best of her works. I have read quite a few from her, but this stuck to me. This is about a haunted mansion, and the story follows Maggie Holt, who inherits that mansion after her father's death. And apparently this mansion is haunted, and they were all living there during her childhood, and after knowing that it is haunted, they have left the place, but now she has to restore it and sell it. During that time, she is finding herself stumbling upon the same kind of mysteries that she found in the childhood, and she finally solves the mystery behind the mansion years after returning to it. So this is also a very great ghost story. This is also a book that I finished in a single day. So you can take this also as a recommendation to get you out of reading slump. The next book I wanted to talk to you about is one of my favorite books of all time, and this is the best thriller out there that I have read personally. That is none other than The Sundown Motel by Simone St James. And I really wanted to read the author's the other book of Cold Cases, I guess, but I ended up reading this one. This is a happy accident because this is one of the best books that I ever read. This was so spooky. I was hooked from the first page to the last page. It's really, really, really fast paced and very, very eventful in every chapter. It's really very good and well written, and this story follows Viv and Carly. It is told in dual timeline. Carly from 2017 is searching for her aunt who was lost, and during 1995 while she was working in the Sundown Motel, and she goes there to work in Sundown Motel again, and she finds herself like Vivian. She's also finding trouble, and haunted places are there, haunted people are there, and it's really very spooky and really very good. It's a well written, well told story. You might want to check it out. You can read this for if you are in a huge reading slump. This is really very good for that. We have almost come to the end of this video. I only want to share a few books that I personally want to read in this October. All of these are believed to be very good for this season, and the first one of it is Halloween Party by Agatha Cristie. It cannot be more apt for this season. Apparently there is a party going on, Halloween party, and someone gets murdered, and Hercule Poirot comes for the rescue and solves the murder. Sounds like a good plan for me, so probably I will pick it up soon. The next book is very, very famous horror book, that is House of Leaves by Mark Z Danielewski. I'm not sure how to pronounce him. Let's call him Mark. So this Mark has written a horror book that's called House of Leaves, and it has multimedia format. It has newspaper cuttings, it has photographs, it has lots of interviews kind of thing. So it is all multimedia, and it is supposed to be very, very chaotic, confusing book, so I have heard, but it's really very eerie and atmospheric and very, very scary to read. Apparently a house is haunted in this book, so what else to expect from this? I hope I'm going to have a great time. The last book that I want to talk to you about is a book from an author who's really very famous for spooky stuffs, who's none other than Stephen King. I have never read anything from him, so I randomly picked up this book. It is called Outsider, and the story is about a murder, and the murderer, the suspected murderer, has an alibi and he was not there at that time, but his DNA, everything matches with the crime scene, but he has an alibi that he was not there in the town during that murder. Can one people be in two places at a time? That is the thing that is being explored in this book. So the premise sounded very, very interesting to me, so I picked this up. I am hoping to read this October and scare myself probably. So that is pretty much it, guys. This is all the books that I wanted to talk to you about. I hope this was very interesting for you. Do recommend some spooky books for me in the comments, and please do share, subscribe and like the video if you really do like it. I will see you in a very next video with a bookish content. Until then, keep reading. This is Sushmita signing off.